Welcome to the Tarot Tapestry, a weaving of self-discovery, where three tarot mavens put their heads and hearts together to offer their wisdom and insights about the tarot. We hope that you find this helpful in your personal journey to self-discovery and growth.
Join us as we explore ways to use tarot for self-reflection and self-correction.
Together, we'll discover new ways to use tarot to weave threads of understanding into the tapestry of your life. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Tarot Tapestry. And today I am joined by Angie. Unfortunately, our other maven, Linda, is unable to join us today, but we hope to see her very soon. She has some adventures that she is going on in the next few weeks. So
big adventure.
yeah, she's gonna have lots of fun. I'm a little jealous, a little jealous of her, but I am so happy for her, and I hope that she enjoys herself immensely. So today we will be talking about the Death card, which is number 13 of the Major Arcana. And I guess to start us off, I can kind of just give some basic keywords to describe the overall energy of the card. So, a big one is like change. It's transitions, right? It's cycles of transformation because as we know, we go through cycles all the time. We have beginnings and we have endings. We have beginnings and we have endings. And the death card pretty much holds on to that idea and kind of like reinforces it in our lives. What I also like was I found in a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about came from the Tarot for Lightseers by Chris Ann, because I've just really been so into her book and her cards lately. Anyway, she talks about new beliefs and new found awareness. And I really like that word because I think so much of the change or these transitions that we go through, we are really working on seeing things differently, like having this new awareness about things that were not in our vision beforehand, before the change. And then like new beliefs, because basically when you're making transitions or when you're changing, you are creating new beliefs or you are altering old beliefs and changing them and like morphing them or transforming them into a new way of seeing something or a new way of believing something. And I really liked when she said that. And then there's also this death rebirth. And in her card, that's what it's named. It's named Death and Rebirth because basically that's what it is, right? Something is going away, right? Something is dying, and then something new is being birthed. Birthed. Such a hard time with that word. And I really enjoyed that. And those are more of the what she refers to as the light side of the card. And then we have more of the shadowy side, which is fear of change, right? And we know that I think pretty much mostly everybody on this planet can say they have been afraid of some kind of change they may have had in their life. They may have been fearful of it. Doesn't mean that they didn't overcome that fear and make the change, but just means that you were a little scared or you had some fear over doing it. There were other things like being very stagnant, right? Like not wanting to step out of the box or not wanting to make a change or move on from a place where you are, where you may not be happy, but for whatever reason, you have this blockage that's not allowing you to move forward. And then another thing that she mentions in her book is the end of hope. It's like hopelessness, this idea that there's just nothing good is going to happen,
Mhm.
and I think for us right now in this year in May of 2025, I think people might be inclined to feel like there may not be any hope with kind of everything that's going on, not just in our country, but I think of the world.
Yeah.
They may start developing some feelings of hopelessness, maybe not for everything, but for some things. And then the other thing was like mourning a loss, which you would say, oh, but that's no so shadowy. But it can be if you allow that mourning to overtake you. It's sort of like with the Three of Swords, when you're mourning something or you're grieving something, but you may not be able to let it go in a period of time that's going to be healthy for you because everybody needs to mourn. But maybe sometimes you can extend that to a point where now it becomes debilitating for you, or where you just can't move on, from that loss. Um, and that was pretty much all that I had. If you wanted to add some stuff
That's
to that,
so
Angie.
great. I loved everything that you said. Another thing with the death card is it is definitely about change. And it's I associate it often with change that you didn't uh put in put into motion really. Like this is something that's kind of happening to you and around you that's out of your control to really steer
Mm,
at the moment. So and it can be a change, even good change can be very uncomfortable. But the death card kind of says that something is changing and it's not like you maybe aren't you might not be feeling ready for it. Um, so you're going to have a bit of discomfort, but off in the distance, and the Rider Waite Smith, even in this one, it's a pretty, scary card. There's lots of uh, sources that say it's about the plague, the bubonic plague, and that it's showing this horse trampling over people who are dead, and it's coming for a priest, and the skeletons in his armor holding this big cross. But way off in the distance is the sunrise. That's where and that's kind of the direction that the horse is moving. Um, so it's going to be okay. You're going to heal. Things will change. Things will move on. Nothing lasts forever. But right now, it's okay to to mourn, to be a little afraid, sad, but try not to cling. Try not to make this thing that is changing, um, not, don't hang on so tight that you get dragged by it, is the thing. We can't all change the great big things in society that we are afraid of. We have to keep our eyes on our own paper. We have to clean our own plates, mow our own lawns, whatever you want to say. We have to be clear and stable and steady and confident in what we think and what we feel. And this vision of death, this it's you're transforming. Something is going to be very different. Something is ending and a brand new thing, a different thing is going to start. But first you have to deal with the ending. And
mm,
however you do that, some people mourn, some people are very resistant. I see this when it's upside down, I see this as somebody knows that there's a change that they need to make, but they're just very, very resistant to it. And they're just, it's like pulling nails to get them to make a different choice. And um, it's kind of about surrender in a way of saying, okay, yes, this is happening and this is how I feel about it, even if it's sad or angry but I have a right to feel what I feel about what's happening right now. But I also need to remember, for the sake of my own sanity and my own future, that this will not last forever. Nothing
mhm.
lasts forever. And it's going to be hard for a while, and you just have to do the best you can do with what's
Yeah,
around. And I
I
think
like that a lot. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say this card, I think, this card, like the devil, they're very kind of like emotionally charged. Like everybody has an idea about death, and it's not really most of our ideas about death. If you're in most religions, it's pretty nice after you're there, or at least not terrible, unless you believe in hell, which I do not. But that's a different thing. That's a whole different thing. What we fear is the transition phase, right? We fear the part where we are changing. And of course, this is not a card about physical death. If you pull this card, it doesn't mean you're going to die, but when you see it, most people have like their mind goes to something like, oh no, this. And so when you pull this card for yourself, I want you to pay attention to that. Oh no, because that's what's changing. That's what you need to change. You need to change your attitude about it, or your fear around it. And sometimes the best way to deal with this is not, because you can't deny the anxiety, you can't pretend it's not there, or the pain or the grief. You just have to sort of allow yourself to relax around it and let it run its course. And it does not feel good. I know it doesn't feel good usually. Um, but the tighter you try to clamp down on these things that are inevitable, the more it stabs you from the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. It just makes everything, it makes everything feel that much more painful, that much more, hard, or and the resistance to it just always makes things worse. And I loved when you referred to it also as surrendering, because it is surrendering. You are surrendering means that you're just letting go of something that maybe you had a lot of resistance to, and you're finally understanding that I don't need to control it, that I can surrender to it. And once you surrender to it, it's like new things begin to happen, right? Like new growth starts to happen because you're not holding on to something that's keeping you down. And I really like that. And it reminds me of, like, my own sobriety. And I think I was in this death stage, and maybe tower stage as well, maybe tower a little bit later, but more of the death stage for a couple of years before I actually quit, because it was like I knew something had to change.
Mhm.
But I was scared of it. I was afraid of, well, if I make this change, my life is going to be different. And
Right.
I didn't know anything other than the life that I was already living. And
Mm.
it was like, oh my God, it's going to be bad. Like, that's your first thought, right? Is that negative? You're projecting negativity into the future, like, oh my God, it's going to be horrible. How am I going to manage? I can't manage, because you're so caught up in holding on to your old ways of doing things because of comfort, right? So you do have to, and that took a few years of being able to deal with, the anticipated loss, right? Because you are mourning a loss of a life the way it was before, and dealing with all of those emotions that come along with, facing your fears. Um, so, sometimes death can take a long period of time, right? If it's something that's very grand and goes very much, and it's like a real major life change that
Mhm.
can take you time. And then, there are also like smaller changes, and I see death also as, knowing that you want to make the change, right? So if I were to get the death card, if that were to come up, say for me or for somebody else, I think one of my first questions I might ask them is like, what is it that you're looking for to change? Like,
Mhm.
are you thinking about changing something in your life, changing something in a relationships, changing something in your career, changing something in your family life, changing something personally? Like, is there something that is on your mind that you're like, oh, you know what? I really wish this was different, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes that's all you have to ask, right? I just want something different. And that is just, even your heart, if you think about your intuition and your heart, that's like saying I want something different because I'm not happy with
Mhm.
this right now,
Or because it's
and
this course and I've finished this now, and now I need to think of something new. I really liked it, I don't want it to end, but it's clearly over. Like if you have a really great job, but the company closes down, you can't still work there because the company isn't there anymore. Or, excuse me. It doesn't have to be a big deal, like to everyone. Um, but this card is a pretty good indication that whatever is on the table needing to be changed is a big deal to the querent, to the person asking the
Yeah.
question. So it's not, um, sometimes we talk ourselves out of the importance of even small changes in our life just because we're used to the way it is, even if it's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
We're used to it, so we know what to expect. Like nobody really knows what to expect after death, right? Nobody's come back after being there for a year or two and said, "Hey guys, here's a map." So, we don't really know. And being uncertain can really cause a lot of fear, but um, fear is not always danger. Being afraid doesn't always mean you're in danger, even though it feels like it. Um, and so it's a really complex situation, a very a deep um, theme. Uh, it's this card is associated with the zodiac sign of Scorpio, which is like a really deep water sign. Like Scorpio does not want anything fake. If it's fake, it's not going to fly with a Scorpio. They want to know, they want to see the reality, the truth. And Pluto is also associated with this, and Pluto is about death and transformation, and so it's this is like a big change. This is a change that someone knows once it's made or once it's complete, they're going to be on a different path probably than the one that they were on, and that can be really scary because you don't know what's on the other path. But
Yeah.
trying to remember that what is happening is ultimately going to be good for you, is going to be a chance to do some things over or to do some things differently that you wanted to do in your life. And there's always hope. There's always hope. It's like you said, it's not just death, it's death and rebirth. And you know, this is a thing that happens in life
Yeah,
to all of us.
absolutely. I love that. And kind of like I guess it's like a metaphor for it is, when flowers die or something dies and it decays, right? It goes through a process of change, right? Of like decaying, and then all of that. And I'm going to use the term energy because we're basically all of us are energy, right? Everything around us is energy, and when whatever has fallen, whether it be a plant or a leaf or whatever it is, an animal has died and decayed, that energy is like transformed now into a different kind of energy, and say that of the soil, and helping to fertilize it to help prepare it for something else to grow. And I think that's like a really beautiful thing when you think about just anything that's what is the term when biodegradable, right?
Right.
It's almost as if, yeah, like that's energy transforming itself, and that new energy that has been created, right? Or that new energy that has been, the old energy has transitioned into a different kind of energy, and that energy is now creating birth, right? Because she also states, she makes a really good point. She talks about the law of conservation of energy, right? Energy is neither created nor destroyed, it just changes. It changes from one form to another form, And I liked when you were also talking about how we might go into it being very scared, right? And fearful of what the outcome is going to be. And I think that if you are in a place like that, maybe focusing or trying to change your focus from the very negative parts to it is to kind of start thinking about, well, what are the positive things that are going to come about of this, right? Because I think as human beings, tend to maybe hold on to or focus more on the negative things, the fearful part of it, and maybe just putting more of the more positive things that will occur in your head and focusing on those, it can change that into more of a feeling of excitement for something new. And I had to do that for myself through that death period that I was in. Is I had to learn to start to focus more on what are the positive things that are going to happen, like what were the things that I was getting excited to be able to do and feel, and that idea of having, just a better mental clarity over things, not always feeling very like down. It was like that change that started to become more exciting to me. And I started to focus more on that. And honestly, it was once I kind of started seeing things in a more positive way that I actually took the step that needed to be take to do what I did. And it takes time, like you were saying, but I also think that it can be exciting. Like I don't want people to think either that change is just like, oh my God, I know I'm going to be in this place and I'm going to be but it can be really, really exciting,
And it's also,
to
so the death card, talking about resistance, you're going, no, 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 no about something. And this is the period of time where you learn to find your yes. Okay, this is the way I'm going, and this is how I'm going to learn to navigate with my from my heart with an open mind. Um, and it's new and it's scary, but scary and excited feel the same in the body. So you kind of get to decide which one you're going to be. And that is really good. And that is a good part of this card. It's you're going to you learn so much about yourself when you face and overcome obstacles and challenges that felt uh, um, ridiculous to even try to fight against or to change. And it probably won't be fast, right, quick, it ends and then tomorrow you wake up and everything is butterflies and rainbows. It's gonna take a while. Like in the card, the sunrise is you can see it, but it's yonder. It's not right where you are. So you've got some miles to cross and some things to overcome, some things to come to terms with, and learning to find your yes about your new whatever it's going to be. I
And
also
it's
wanted
like
to say,
that light at the end of the tunnel. That's what it made me think of when you were talking about that sun rise all in out yonder.
yeah,
It was like the light at the end of the tunnel, and the closer you get to it, the brighter it becomes.
hmm I wanted to talk about the death card from the Tarot of Mystical Moments too, because it's very pretty. It
Mm.
shows a woman with a short dark hair, and she's got a flower in her hair, and her arms and her head look, lovely, but then her her ribs are exposed. It's not gory. It's not a gory card, but she's full of flowers, and there are flowers
Mhm.
growing from her, and there's a butterfly next to her. So it is, yeah, she's not what she used to be, but now she's going to be something different, and that's
And
the way I like to.
a slightly better version of what you were before.
Yeah.
Like I like to look at, change, and that symbolic meaning of death, right? The rebirth as, you know, like it's I after once I got sober, I referred to myself as the Kate 2.0 version,
Yeah.
and then each time you make a change, it's like, a new software update. Okay, well now I am the 2.1, or I am the 3 now, or the you know what I mean? It's like you're just always making you're always reaching a higher uh a higher plane for yourself, right? Like we all talk about so much about, our authentic self or our true self, right? And each time you make these changes, you get that much closer to embodying and understanding and living your true self, right? The person that each of us wants to be, because we all have that inside of us. We all have this idea of that true person, right? That authentic self that we know we have it in us to be that way, but we have to overcome obstacles and challenges in order, to get there. But it's all within us. We all have that power, to be able to do that. And each time that you make those changes, and each time that you face death and you come out on the other side, you're just increasing that power that you have. And each time it just becomes a little bit easier to deal with, right? A
Mhm.
little bit easier to maybe transition or transform than it did the last time. It's like experience. Um, you know, so
Yeah, I think a good way to start is if you imagine yourself in the Rider-Waite Smith card, right where the horse and rider are, right where the reaper is, right there. And you can see the sunrise, and you don't want to. You're still in the no, 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 I don't want to stage. Start making the least bad decision. You know what I mean? Sometimes all of the decisions, nothing is what you want. Nothing that is possible for you to do is the thing that you actually really want to do. But if
mhm,
you can practice allowing yourself to find the least bad decision, the least bad choice, and to be brave enough to take that, even when it's not the easiest way, because it's usually not. If it was
yeah.
easy, we wouldn't need tarot cards or yoga or meditation
Or
or anything else.
therapist.
Yeah, or therapist or anything else you do to make yourself better. But if you can give yourself a break and just, even when you feel like absolute hammered shit, say, I am just going to do my best today. I'm just going to do my best. And sometimes that means doing very little in the outward expression of doing something, but really working with your mind and changing your mind and telling yourself all of the things you need to know and understanding that, things are going to change and that you're going to be okay. And it's okay that you're not okay right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. That was a lot. Like I thought about death and I'm like, all right, well, how much can we really talk about? It's transition and change and fear. But yeah, there's a lot to it. You don't realize, I think, how much goes into transformations and change. And I'm glad that we had an opportunity to like really dive deep into it and give our listeners like a pretty good, I thought anyway, a pretty good description
I hope so. I hope
of
everybody
of
likes.
how you can use the card and just
Mhm.
relating it to our personal experiences. So would you like to pull some cards on the
Yes,
spread?
yes,
Yeah, so I found a spread, well, actually in Chris Ann's Tarot for the Light Seers guidebook. For all the major arcana cards she has a spread for each of those cards. And we decided for today's episode that we would pull cards, for her spread. And it's such a beautiful name. It's the Forest of Rebirth spread.
yes.
Yeah, which is quite beautiful.
I really
And
like
all
that
right.
because it goes to the what we were talking about, your energy changes, whatever was there before decays and is, you know,
Mhm.
changes form and gives new life. So I love that forest of
Yeah,
rebirth.
absolutely.
And
There's
that's how
always new
spirits
growth in the
treat us.
forest, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
there's always new things growing, from old things dying. Okay, so for our listeners, it's a three-card spread. And basically, if you are one that likes to know the order of the cards, card number one, it's going to be just in a straight line. So card number, it'll be one, two, and three, just one right after the other. Card number one is called What Needs to End. And things that you can think about would be what patterns of thinking, behaviors, relationships, etc., are in need of a closure, right? You can think of it that way. So, you know what, let's just do one by one.
Okay.
And then I'll go on to number two. All right. So, what needs to end? What patterns of thinking, behaviors, relationships, etc., are in need of closure? Let's
Okay.
see.
I pulled Three of Swords from
Oh, good
Tarot of
one.
Mystical Moments. And this is a very beautiful card. It shows a man, his body is kind of like a rose, and he's got three arrows right in the middle of where his heart would be. It's right in the middle of the rose that's in the middle of his chest. And he's surrounded kind of like by thorns, and he's got tears of blood on his face. And he's not having a great time right now. This card, it's about grief. It's about things that really hurt you, um, that you didn't have control over, probably. And it's, it might be something that is always, to some extent, going to weigh in your heart. It will hurt forever. Some things hurt
Yeah.
forever. And that is hard, but it is survivable. And so I think when it comes to endings, what this card is saying is you have to stop being stuck. You have to recognize that right now this is as good as you're going to feel. And you need to move on. Just even little
Yeah.
tiny baby steps. Even tiny baby steps every day. Pick one
Yeah.
thing you're going to do every day. If you're in a depressive slump and it's hard to wash your face or take a shower, just tell yourself, I'm going to brush my teeth every day. Every day I'm going to get up and I'm going to brush my teeth because I deserve to have clean teeth. And then
Yeah.
add on new things every day. You know,
Yeah.
today I'm going to take a shower. Today I'm going to make my bed. Or, and to recognize that you can also feel good around this thing that you're going to have to carry forever. That it's not it is the thing in your life and it's going to be there forever, but it is not the only thing in your life. So I
Yeah.
think this card, when it comes to ending, speaks to understanding, accepting this is going to hurt, and it just is going to hurt until it doesn't, and it might not never hurt. It might not ever not hurt. That didn't make very much sense, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So okay, your turn.
Yeah, so I got the Ten of Wands. And I am using the Light Seers deck. And in this picture, you have a big mountain, and there is a trail that's coming down from the top of the mountain to the bottom. And there are some stakes with flames on them. And then there is a woman, and she's holding a bunch of stuff. And then she's got like an ox or a bull, and that bull is carrying a bunch of what looks like to be very heavy bundles of things, right? And when I think about what needs to end, it's like I need to stop carrying all of this maybe unnecessary burdens or weight that is kind of holding me down from maybe accomplishing a goal or doing something that I want to do, right? So, what needs to end? Maybe even this thought or idea that I have to carry all of this with me right now at this time. You know what? And maybe I don't. Maybe I can just take a minute and reassess and say, okay, so what of all of these burdens or all of these responsibilities that I have, or this feeling of, oh my God, I got so much going on. There's so many things I have to do, and I'm like, blah blah. You know, you're just like driving yourself crazy. It's like, okay, well, what can I just like what can I just get rid of for right now? Like, what can I just take off my plate and just keep on going, and not allow all of these maybe unnecessary burdens and responsibilities, because we all have responsibilities, right? Um, and we're always carrying things around like on our back. That's just life, right? That's just being a human. But sometimes we carry more than what's absolutely necessary,
And a
so
lot of times
maybe
we
you,
carry stuff that isn't even ours. Like the
right?
first
Oh,
thing you put
very
down,
good.
Anything that's not yours, put that shit down.
And I like that because in this picture, the poor bull or ox is carrying things that are, it's not even theirs, right?
Hmm.
It's somebody else's stuff that, that this animal is carrying. And I love that. Yeah. So what needs to end? Carrying other people's like
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
That's like, yeah, I really like that a lot. Okay, so that was that. So number two
Okay.
is the change. What attitudes or actions will make this process smoother? And in what ways am I changing? Hmm.
Oh, okay. I got the Three of Wands for this one. And
Ooh,
in
two
Tarot of
threes.
Mystical Moments, yeah, right? Tarot of Mystical Moments, it shows there's a woman who's very, very tall, like she's a giantess, and she's wearing this long blue gown that goes out into the ocean and also back into the city that's on the shore. And she's got three very, very long braids that sort of wind back behind her into the shore. And she's got her hand on her hip and she's holding a ship and she's just looking out at the horizon. So I think the change that needs to happen here with this card is um, understanding that there's more for you than what you can see from your current perspective.
Mhm.
Try to back up. The sun looks like it's rising. It's still kind of like, gray and blue and nighttimey up at the top of the sky, but the bottom is starting to brighten. So what needs to change, I think, is your belief in yourself, your belief that there is something that comes next, even though your heart still hurts, you can still move on. And yeah, I like the Three of Wands because it doesn't show like she's not running away. There's no huge action, but it's like, threes are about kind of fruition and blossoming, right? The two come together and now there's three. And so it's sort of like now you're starting to have some sparks, some ideas, some creativity. Maybe there's something you want that you're looking at from a distance right now. This is you
Yeah.
figuring out I can keep walking. There's the sunrise. Right now I'm here, maybe where I don't want to be, but there's the sunrise and I have this boat in this card. I can get in my boat and I can go towards the sunrise.
Oh, I like that very much. That is such a beautiful deck. I was came across it and I think a video that I was watching or something, and I like I was like, wow, I have to pull that deck out again because it really is such a beautiful deck.
It's
Um,
really gorgeous. I think I'm going to use it for the rest of the spring. I've been very dedicated and very loyal to my RWS deck for about a year, and I think it's time for a little bit of a change up. So
there you go. Look at that. You're in a death stage. I love it.
I'm changing my mind.
Okay, so for mine, the change was the world. Now, I will be honest to all of our listeners out there that the world card is a bit tricky for me sometimes. I don't pull it often at all. So when it does come up, I'm kind of like, oh, what is it? And one of the first things that come to mind is this idea of the world is like a completion. Basically, like something has ended and now I am entering, like you can even think of it as entering a new chapter of your life, right? That's kind of how I look at it. I've gone, because it is also the last card in the major arcana. So you're at the very end, and it's also representative of like a cycle, right? So when you get to the world, the next step after that is the fool again, right? So
Again,
you're going back to the beginning. So maybe what needs to change is that attitude of you need to focus more on the new beginning that could happen, or to have that fool energy or that fool mentality of I don't know what's going to happen when, because if we're talking about the 10 of wands and carrying that burden, right? And you're worried that if I don't carry this burden, if I don't occupy my mind with everything that's going on, something is going to go wrong, right? Something is going to be amiss, and I don't want anything to go
And it'll
wrong.
be my fault. Yeah.
Right. Yes, you put the blame on yourself, but
Mhm.
maybe to approach it with the attitude of, you know what? I'm willing to take that chance. I'm willing to go off and say, you know what? I can't deal with that stuff. I need to put that aside right now. And you know what? Whatever happens, happens, and I can deal with it. You know, that attitude of, I don't know what's going to happen. I may be able to, in my mind, speculate, and I can project maybe what's going to happen. And most of the time that comes from your fears. But maybe just walking into it, that fool's attitude of, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen, but I do have some experience behind me to get me through things. And I'm just going to go for it. Like, I'm just going to go for it and deal with what happens, happens. And that's
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, and it's like the world too, it's like you're stepping through a portal. You don't,
Mhm.
like you were saying, you don't really know exactly everything that's going to be on the other side, but you have conquered the thing that you were trying to conquer to some degree, and now you are ready to change right now. And and it
Yes.
also to me said, don't keep anything off the table. Everything is up for change with the world card. So, um, you know, like it's, yeah, keep an open mind, and you're, to me, the world card, like you said, you're kind of at the end. And then in my reading, it's like the person is just recognizing, oh, this is what's wrong. And oh, I can look in a different direction and figure it
Yes.
out. So let's see what happens next.
So the next
Okay.
one is the forest of rebirth. What new potential lies on the horizon or rebirth? What beautiful new beginnings will emerge? Such
I,
beautiful. I love it, right? Like, what
I pulled,
potential lies on the horizon?
yes, I pulled the Queen of Cups. And in this card, it's a woman sitting underwater on a big clamshell. And she's got, it looks like blonde hair, but it's also tentacles for her hair.
Mm.
She's snuggling a seahorse, and she just looks, there's fish swimming around in the backyard, in the background. And it just looks very peaceful. And she's underwater. The water is calm. Water is very uh, attached to our emotions. So to me, this says the thing that is the potential is that you're going to find your calm again. You're going to
Mm.
be able to engage honestly with your emotions without so much pain. If you can, uh, do these things, be gentle with yourself. Understand that it hurts because it hurts, and it's going to hurt. You don't have to wait for it to
Yeah.
stop hurting to look towards your future. And to not just look at your future only from the seat that you occupy right at the moment. Let
Mhm.
yourself imagine a little bit of niceness, a little bit of beauty for yourself, and keep following that. And eventually you will achieve some mastery of your
Oh,
emotions and how you feel. And the Queen of Cups too isn't just all about her. She also is able to help other people who are in a spot that she's been in, maybe, who she can say, listen, babe, I can't do this for you, but look, I'm holding up my light. Can you see it? Come this way, you know, sing out.
you wind up becoming a beacon for somebody else, you
Yeah, I'll
know?
keep talking so you know what direction the good stuff is in, and that you're not by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And also that compassion for yourself. I think many times we forget that, yes, it's important for us to have that compassion for others, right? But we need to have that compassion for ourselves. And I think many times we forget that. We forget to be compassionate to ourselves and to give ourselves, like you were saying, that time to deal with those emotions and say, yes, it's okay. It's okay for me to have these very deep emotions about what is going on. It's okay. It's okay to have that,
And in
just
this
like you
society,
would say to somebody else.
a lot of the time in our society, we think if we're in pain, we've done something wrong.
Mhm.
And and you that's not true. It's just not true. Some things just hurt. And they hurt because you're an earthling, not because you've done something wrong, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So I got the King of Wands.
Ooh,
And I really like that because, the first card for like what change needs to happen or what do you need to let go of, what do you need to let go of was the Ten of Wands, which is obviously wands, right? It's
mhm.
fire, it's passion, it's like, oh, like that weight when you think about the burdens that you carry, it kind of like it can make you very like, oh, I got all this stuff I have to deal with, and it just makes you like grumpy and low energy. Like you may have low physical energy, but you have all of this like mental energy going on in your head about the things that are going on. And you get to the world and you're like, okay, you know what? I can end this cycle of unnecessary burden and I can start something new. I can become the fool. I can take on this new adventure of what my life will be like once I rid myself of these burdens that I don't need to carry, whether they're my burdens that are unnecessary or somebody else's burden. And now you get to the King of Wands. And to me, like the King of Wands is like fearless, right? They're like full of passion and ideas and they're going for what they want, and it is a king. So there is, maybe a little bit more emphasis on like that structure and how am I going to get this done and what am I going to do to make this thing that I want to happen, and I love that because it's like I am the king of my castle, right? I can make what I want happen. I have that power to do so. And if I am the fool and I am saying, I am going to try this. I'm going to leave that behind and try something new and different. I'm the king of my castle. I can create my world. I can create my kingdom and I can create it the way that I see fit, the way that's going to bring back passion to my life, that's going to make me appreciate what I can do, what I can accomplish, and can appreciate the new opportunities that will arise because I was able to let it go. I was able to start like on a new path. Um, yeah, that's all I got for that one.
Kings delegate things, right? And that
Hmm.
goes back to your Ten of Wands. You don't have to carry everything. The king doesn't do everything himself or themselves. They delegate. They have teams of people. They have people who can help them, who have said they will help them, that they can hand jobs to and know that they don't have to worry about it now. Like, here, this is yours.
Absolutely.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to do king shit. You do this thing that needs to get done. And yeah, I love that reading for
Yeah.
you.
And there's something very powerful in that, right? To know that, again, it's talking about power, right? Like having this power to do what I want to do and not have it all fall on my shoulders, like you said,
Mm.
right? I had this experience and I understand that doing it all myself gets me nowhere. But when I have other people to help me get something done, I'm happier, less stress, and things tend to work out in a in a much more positive way, for people. So
And it's good to
yeah,
be king, right? It's good to be.
yeah,
So you
absolutely.
by delegating things, you get to enjoy your kingdom again too. Not just build it, not just protect it, not just make it sure everything is running smoothly, but to really enjoy what you have built, brought
Created.
into
Yeah,
being.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
If you want to just sit down and read and journal about these questions first, I think that the insight that you get from tarot is going to be just so much more powerful because tarot will be able to say yes and to what you've already figured out. And your mind will be so focused on what it is that you're working with that you will get so much more out of this. And it doesn't have to be like you don't have to sit down and write pages and pages like I do usually. You can just sit down for 5 minutes and think about it and have a pen and paper nearby. Just jot down the bullet points, that just
yeah,
pop into your head. But I think the more that you are willing to explore yourself and get to know yourself honestly, the more you learn by using this practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one little tiny thing to add to that is, if you choose to do the journaling, it's to what immediately comes to mind, like, right, like what is your intuitive knowing that comes to mind? Because I know for me, I tend to like, I'll have like a first thought. It'll come to me very quickly and I'll write it down and then I'll be like, I don't know about that. And then I'll start thinking and thinking and thinking. And then sometimes you can just think too much. And, so I have been trying to do that where I will just write just the first few things that come to mind. It goes down on paper and I stop. And that's just for me
Mhm.
because I can get very caught up in
Yes.
everything. Yeah. And then I'll pull a card and then it's like, oh, and many times you can see what your intuitive knowing was. You can see that reflected in the card, but then it opens up so much more for you to, to contemplate or to think about that is in relation to what you were already thinking, just like kind of expanding that awareness of it. And it really can be, and it took me, I've been doing tarot now for 6 years and I've only started doing that in the past maybe 6 months, 7 months that I've started doing that. And it was constantly suggested, right? Many people suggest doing this type of like journaling, even before you pull your cards, after you pull your cards. And I was very resistant to it. And now I just, like you had said, I made very small steps for myself. It was like, okay, I'm not going to sit there and write, 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 write. I'm just going to jot down first
Hmm.
things that come to mind. I stop right there. That's it. I'm done. I'm,
Yep.
I'm not,
And
yeah.
that can also help you not whirl in your own mind. Just getting whatever thought is in your mind out of it and onto a piece of paper. And then if you want that
Yes,
thought again, you can come back and look at it, but you don't have to worry about it anymore because it's been,
exactly.
processed, I guess.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you decided where to put it.
Hi, but anyway, all right, Angie, this was wonderful. Thank you, listeners for joining us today. And we will see everybody next week.
Yeah. See you.
Have a good
Bye.
one.